Hey everybody, welcome once again to my 5 o'clock club. So if you are watching, we are doing another installment of the Rittenhouse Square Fine Art Show, our Thursday series of 5 o'clock clubs. You probably haven't seen me in at least a couple weeks, at least since the show, which was a great virtual success, and it's done, gone, and we're glad we went through it, and we're glad we don't have to do it again, because we will be live in September in the park. Woohoo is right. For those of you who do not know me, I am Chris Buonomo, proud member of the board of directors for the Rittenhouse Show. And if you don't know this, this is a great fact for everybody to know. Rittenhouse Square, the Fine Art Show, not only is the oldest, longest running fine art show, outdoor fine art show in the country, which was started by students, but it is a show that has no corporate sponsorship. We are a show that is completely put on by the board of directors, which are all professional artists that participate in the show. So we are a completely artist-run show, which is amazing that such a great show is put on by a bunch of artists, to be quite frank. As an artist, I'm amazed that we get it done as well as we do. But it's a labor of love, and we all work extremely hard to make the show a success. So I don't think that gets mentioned enough, that it's volunteer. We're all volunteers. We don't make money to do this. We do it because we love the show, and we want the show to be successful, and a great show is great for all of us. So, again, I'm Chris Buonomo, and this is my company, 13degreestudios.com. And I am the sculptor, artist, painter, a little bit of everything beyond that, and I'm located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So today I want to talk about a couple different things, because during the show I talked a lot about my chisels, wood carving. Today I want to touch on two different aspects of sculpture. I want to talk a little bit about marble carving, and then I'm going to talk about working in relief as well. So these are two aspects that I do a lot with, and I'm very well versed in both of these. So as usual, I have my trusty compatriot Amanda, my beautiful wife, who's behind the camera. Say hi, Amanda. And I am happy to answer any questions that you might have. So leave a comment, Amanda will read it, and she can let me know what you want to know, and hopefully I can answer it for you. So we're going to start with this big. Actually, before we even get into that, I never speak about a very important part of sculpting, and when that's about having the space. So I always do these outside because I do all my carving outside. I like to carve outside better than inside. One, I enjoy being in the weather. I enjoy the different seasons. I love when it's cold out here carving. I have a burn barrel. I'll get a little fire going when it's really cold. And there are benefits as far as you're not dealing with the dusty indoor environment. You know, wood and stone generate a lot of dust, and when you work indoors, you're fighting the dust, and there's some different things you might work on. You don't want to be breathing that dust indoors, so while you're working outside, it can be a little better environment to be doing some of the work you're doing, and you're not living in dust, which you do in an indoor carving environment, which happens. This is new. As you might be seeing here, this is I got tired of being just pelted by the sun constantly, but I don't want a permanent roof out here, so this was a nice little option that I came up with, and I love it. It's just enough to keep me out of the sun and keep me out of a little bit of rain, and it was a really nice little compromise too, and I can take it down when I don't feel like having it. So, but what I was getting at was tables. I don't talk about tables a lot, and tables are a really important part, especially when you start getting into heavier things like stone and big wood pieces. So this is a really traditional stone carving table here, that wood top, and then I wind up on stone. I always try and do stone tops on your table because they're durable and they're flat. You know you're getting flat surfaces and durable surfaces to walk on. And then a lot of times what you'll do is, I was a welder for a lot of years. So I'm able to take that aspect of a career I learned and make my own tables. So, whatever sizes I want, I'll make some nice steel tables on wheels, lockable wheels. You can make whatever heights you want. I wanted a lower table, I wanted a high table. And again, repurposing. So you can kind of see, this was actually part of an old pool table. This is the slate top that was from a pool table. So that was a great find. And again, repurposing, beautiful tabletop. So having really nice, secure, heavy-duty tables is really important once you start getting into stone. So this is a chunk of marble. Ta-da, marble. Most people know marble mostly from either Michelangelo or countertops these days, or bathrooms. But marble is a very traditional, very historic element of carving and sculpture in general. Man has been carving marble for many, many centuries, thousands of years actually, with marble work. Marble is a really nice stone to work with because it's a hard stone, but it is not a granite hard stone. When you get into the granites, you're getting into diamond tip chisels. Working in granite is really difficult. Marble you can still work with just regular, nicely tempered steel tools. It's a beautiful stone to work with. The qualities, the lights, the shadows, the beauty of the stone are the nicest stone in my mind to work with. And a really nice byproduct of it is there's no silica dust in marble. So when you get into granites and limestones and all sorts of other stones, there is silica dust, which you breathe, your body can't flush it out. It gets into your lungs and stays there forever. Old carvers always got something called silicosis, which basically they drowned in dust over a lifetime because they just breathed so much dust. You look like you have a question. Oh, okay. There's a lot of calcium carbonate in marble. Your body can take that calcium carbonate, breaks it down, flushes it out, because calcium is something we have quite a bit of in our body, hence bones. So it's not, listen, you don't want to be breathing lots and lots of marble dust, but it's not a dangerous dust to breathe. So when you look at this stone here, now this is just a rough hewn chunk. The only thing I've done to this so far, yes.
Can your tables stay out in all kinds of weather?
They do. These are outdoor tables. Actually, I got to paint them again, but I paint them. The wood paint, the steel, the paint, the tops. Nothing affects the tops, so they are full-time outdoor tables. So just a rough hewn chunk. The only thing I've done in this was I carved the bottom to flatten it. This is going to be a vertical piece. So I just carved enough of the bottom to give it a stand. Now you might be wondering what these holes are in here. And what you'll get and you might have seen them in other things in life actually. And actually you can see here, you'll see this line that runs here, that is the continuation of that hole there. So these holes run through. These come from actually splitting stone. So when you are splitting stone, what I'll do is if some of these bigger chunks that you'll see here, and you'll see holes and these similar kind of lines in a lot of stuff. And actually you can see Mandy over here, show if you can, right here. If you see along there. Mm-hmm. When you're going to split stone, you will. Oh yeah, right there. You will drill a series of holes, and then into that series of holes, you will then slowly start putting wedges in, and you will sink wedges in with the sledgehammer, and you will slowly repeat, just keep going along that line, and at some point you have stressed that stone enough that it will crack along that line. So that is a traditional way to split stone. That is, again, how have people been splitting stone since the Egyptians, basically. Again, you can see, and if you read the stone right, you will split. And here was a much bigger drill to do this one. It will split on that line. You can split stone straight. You know, you can, sometimes you'll get a situation like this where you'll get a little bit of offset splitting here, because actually there's a line of green that runs through here. So what will happen in a piece like this, since this is going to be an abstract piece, I'm looking at what I'm going to carve this with these in mind. So in my mind, part of the composition will incorporate openings where these holes are. So that's, you know, it's not a negative. You look at it as far as something like that, and that's just something that, again, working abstractly. Now, if I had something in mind, I wouldn't pick this piece if those were going to be in the way. I'd pick a different piece. Mandy, come up closer. I want you to show something. So coming through here, obviously stone gets dirty when it's sitting in the dirt. Look here. Here's a line, a vein line here, and then you have one here. Mm-hmm. So you know here that, again, compositionally, a lot of times you want to think of where the grain's running in the stone and think of that as part of the composition as well. Now, I'm going to show you something. Now, this is a piece of stone this is marble from Carrara, which is the quarry in Italy, which is most famous for Michelangelo David came from Carrara, as well as a lot of Bernini sculpture. A lot of the famous Renaissance Italian work came out of Carrara. I just brought a few chisels out, not many stone chisels today. There are three basic shapes when you come to carving stone. And again, I carve by hand. So you have a point chisel, which are these. You have a tooth chisel. So this is first step. This is second step. There's a different tooth chisel. And then you have flat chisels, which look like closest to like a wood chisel. You can get into some special shapes, a little bit of a curved piece, but that's a little bit more. Specialty shapes are much more in wood carving than stone carving. Stone carving it's a different process. You're not shaving like you are when you're wood carving. It's almost more like you're pulverizing stone. So I'll show you real quick. Again, hammers. These are 1.5 pound mallets. I have a shorter one, longer handle to get more power, and a tooth hammer, which I'll show you what that does. So basically, when you're coming into stone, and one of the things you do different with stone that you don't do with wood is you try and carve into stone, not to the outer edge. You want to carve inside. Now, with this stone here, to carve this, I'd probably start lying it down to give it. But the first thing you want to do is you want to look at some areas that might have some bad stone, where you might have some weathering, and you might want to knock some of these areas off first, just to see if you have any areas that are going to be a problem right off the bat. So because here you can see this line here, that is also a kind of like a grain seam. Now I want you to see something here. It's going to be hard to see. You see where I knocked that little bit of stone there? You see that little bit of green right there? Can you see that, Mandy? Mm-hmm. That green is actually like algae. That shows water was getting into here. Mm-hmm. So that shows that there was some water penetration in through here, and that bit of water penetration lets me know that there might be some more issues down through here. So what I would do is, so here we go. There we go. You see, now that's a better view of that green. Again, showing there was water there. So I'm going to want to go along here and see if it stays weak. Oh, I got you.
That's it.
So there you go. Stone carving. Stone flies off pretty good. So wear glasses. Again.
Don't hit me in the stomach.
Okay, but again, see, just this is a nothing piece, but it shows you you're just looking for areas. Again,
All the green.
you see that water was getting in there, and then what'll happen with some stones? This is still really hard. So even that thin little piece is still really. I can't even break that. What you can get is called sugaring, where that stone gets really soft, and that outer layer of stone can almost get so brittle that you can break it up into a powder. Now, like I said, this is still, Carrara stone it's a hard marble, so even that piece is still pretty hard. So yeah, the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to go around this stone, and I'm going to knock some things off before I even really get going. Now you can see already how beautifully white this stone is once you start getting into it. So this is always going to be your first step. You're going to rough out shape with the point chisel. Sorry. You get really strong hands from carving, and you get very calloused hands, and your hands get hit a lot. Your hands get beat up. It just kind of goes with the territory. So what I would do, you start roughing out shape. And what's funny is I have lots and lots of stone chisels, but kind of like anything in life, you develop favorites. So all the different point chisels I have, I really do most of my stuff with this one, which really wasn't even a stone carving chisel. I made this from a different piece entirely. It had nothing to do with chisels. But let me get a sip of water. But I turned this into a chisel, and it's my favorite. So you rough things out with this. Now the next step that a lot of people will go to, and this is a new one, is then the tooth chisel. Tooth chisel is for kind of rounding areas, getting certain areas into flat planes, taking high spots down, and it's a way to create uniformity in area with that tooth chisel. Now it also can create a beautiful texture that you can leave as part of a piece. So you can see, that's a way that I can get a nice, consistent plane. It can help you, I'm shooting a man again. It can help you roll shapes. When you have nice curves, it can give you a nice consistent to get highs and lows knocked off. So here. Again, it's just an idea of how you would use a tooth chisel. And again, you have different sizes. If I'm doing a bigger area, I can get into a bigger tooth. Same thing, just a bigger version. Now, say I have a really big area that I want to try and flatten out. That's when this tooth hammer comes into play. So this is a great for doing a bottom, trying to really flatten something. So you can see how that tooth hammer just makes this great even texture. What?
Sharon asks, do you have a vision of the finished piece once you've selected the marble block, or do you follow the stone and where it takes you? And then she also says, better question, is there a song or rhythm that you're tapping out there?
I will tap to whatever song I'm listening to. So if I'm listening to something, you'll hear me get going.
Or the mowing of next door?
Right now, I might be tapping to the mowing. Do I have an idea? Yes, I have an idea of what this is going to look like. I already can tell. I don't even want to say it, but I do. I know what this is going to look like already. I have a vision. My vision is very female body part looking.
All your visions are female body parts.
It is, but but that's kind of what that's going. Yes, I do. Everything I make is vaginas and penises. I've learned that over the years. So, all right. I hope everybody can still hear me with the guy mowing next door. The final chisels you're going to use are flat chisels. So here's an average size flat right there. Now, again, favorites. This was just a piece of steel that I made into a chisel. It is a 1/4 inch piece of square rod that I tempered, put an edge on it. This is my far and away favorite chisel. I do more work with this little thing, no matter how big the piece I'm carving is, because it's I guess it's like my teddy bear, or like if I had a blanket, this is my blanket. And again, it's just same. You're just seeing there's not a lot of tricks to stone carving other than doing it. It's very physical. It's very active. Your hands can get tired. Your hands can get cramped. But the longer you do it, the better you get at it, and the more comfortable you are, and the longer you can do it every day. So I would go from here. If I'm doing something really delicate, I can use a wooden mallet, because it's not going to give me as much of a, just going to give me a softer blow, a softer finish. And then from there, we'd go right back again. That's pretty smooth, right?
Yeah. Sandy.
Well, that's not sandy, it's dusty, marble dusty. And then we go right back to files and sandpaper, same finish that I would use in wood carving. So the stone is different than wood in this regard. It's more physically demanding, but it's easier to carve because there are almost no surprises inside of the stone. If I know the grain and I've read the grain of the stone right, I know how it's going to react at any given moment. When you get into wood, you can then have some areas inside the wood that were very unexpected. You don't get that in stone. Stone is stone. Bugs, nails, old inclusions from branches. Yeah, you just sometimes you don't know what I've heard some guys that work in wood that have found crazy things that a tree grew around inside something that they were working on. That doesn't happen in the stone. That's a different component. Stone is more just about, it's slower. It's a slower process. It takes longer to see the process and the progress. Wood is a quicker, there's more instant gratification to wood carving than stone. The gratification of finishing stone is a much It's a much more Zen process is how I look at it. So that's basic stone. Here we go. Actually, let me just pull this up real quick. So here's another piece. And again, this is a good idea to show you how cool the grain is on there. So, you know, the Carrara marble has some beautiful grains in it. And then actually I want to show you one more piece of stone here.
What? It's got a big penis in it?
No, this is not a penis.
Okay. Watch.
I'm going to go right here. Now, this is not marble. This is a piece of alabaster. I don't have much of it. I was only able to get my hands on one. This is called crystalline alabaster. And it is almost translucent once you carve it thinner. So this is a piece where light will really come through the stone. Actually, here's another chunk of it right here. This is that same crystalline alabaster. So, look, again, how it was split. So you can kind of see it has this cloudy quality to it. It's going to be really beautiful to do some work with. It's hard to find. There's not a lot of it. So there we go. That's a little bit of marble work. Any more questions, Mandy?
No more questions.
Okay. What's that?
Halfway through.
Halfway through. Good. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the other part today, which is carving in relief. Again, something that I do quite a bit of, and I've done a lot of lately because people have been really interested in it lately. So if people are interested in it, I'm going to keep doing it. So relief by definition is sculpture that is coming off of a flat plane, and it's coming off of the background. So
Is the plane?
is that the plane to Fantasy Island?
Yeah, the plane.
Say it, boss, the plane.
Boss, the plane.
What I'm actually doing is kind of like a customized version of relief. It's technically it's not by letter of the law historic relief, because historic relief has a solid background, and the imagery is protruding from a solid background. So the relief in the sense that they're viewed from a frontal position, they're flatter with depth created into a flat plane. So relief sculpture, for people that don't know what relief sculpture is that relief has been done for over 20,000 years, that man has been creating relief sculpture. And there are three typical types of relief. There's low relief, called bas relief, which is very flat, and a lot of depth is created in a very, very flat surface. Then there's high relief, where you can have almost full figures coming out with then background. And then there's a mid relief, which kind of is exactly what it sounds like, something between high and low. Probably the most famous relief sculpture in America would be Mount Rushmore. That probably is the most famous. There's another famous one that was just in the news recently, the big Confederate monument in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Humongous carved relief onto that mountain. But then you'll get things, yeah?
One of my favorite ones is in 30th Street Station.
Oh, the Progress. Yeah, the second room right off the main. That's a great relief. I love that relief.
That's a high relief. You've got horses coming out of that.
Yes, well, and then you can get like, if anybody ever saw the movie Glory, at the end of that movie Glory with Matthew Broderick about the Civil War, they show the Shaw sculpture in Boston, which is, it has some elements of low relief, it has high relief, and then it has full figures in the front. So it has three-dimensional sculpture backed by relief, which is really cool, and that's a beautiful sculpture. You can get a crazy amount of depth in relief panel work. And then again, anyone's been in a church, the Stations of the Cross are all relief sculpture. So there's a lot of in Roman Catholic art, there's a lot of relief. It's a really important part of sculpture in Catholicism. So when I'm doing my versions of relief, I have been doing these live edge plank pieces. So here's one that's in process now. As always, I draw them out and then I slowly start to carve. And again, I hand carve the relief pieces I'm doing. One of the things that's really important to get the depth in relief, maybe I'll stand this up. It might be easier to look at and talk about. I'm going to put it over here, Mandy. Maybe I'll put it over here. Let's see. Put it right here. Yeah. Okay. Oh, you know what, Mandy? Come here. No, we'll just put it there. That's good. So, one of the things when I'm doing these pieces to create the depth I'm looking for is you need to keep a consistency of different elements. So, I try and create a lot of things that weave creates a lot of depth in a very narrow space. So you have to keep a consistency. If something's going over and under, you have to be aware that it's going to continue over and under for the next area it travels to. So you have to be cognizant of where you're going with each element. So, like for this, where it's going to come, I want these two pieces to weave. So we're going over, under, and then we're going to reverse it here, over, under there. So those two are absolutely going to be like, I guess there's kind of a lot of Celtic-y influence in this piece.
Lots of wows.
Lots of wows. I like wows. This piece is going to be fun because this is the first one I'm doing like this, where it's going from this organic, and I want to transition into a very geometric finish up through here. So it's going to be fun to transition because I don't work in straights very often because there's not straights in the feminine form.
Somebody asked if one of those vines breaks, do you scrap the whole piece?
No, in this piece, the beauty of abstract is I can adjust it. If this broke in here, it would be problematic because it would leave a really big void. Because maybe I'd have to then rethink the composition and put some other big opening somewhere else so it didn't look like a single broken area. When I'm doing more realism, like when I'm doing my flowers and vines and leaves, if I break one of the stems, that piece is, it's done because that firewood, yeah.
Repurposed.
Or it goes in the half-price bin somewhere out. To be cognizant now, I'll show you something else. So again, these are elements that I can create depth in, where I'm rolling in very thin areas. I'll roll. So there's only from the high point here to here, there's only about 3/4 of an inch difference. But when I'm done, that's going to read so deep, these different shapes through here, or even how these will read. And you use little kind of carving tricks because you have to use the light and shadow to create depth. The weave is going to create depth through the physical piece, but the light and shadow create a ton of depth from how that light reacts with the piece. So I can create a lot of depth in very small areas with how the light is going to play off it. So this is a piece of cherry. It's a nice piece to carve. I'm going with the grain, unless I'm going directly in. So it's nice to carve and work with. The one that Amanda's leaning on is a different animal entirely. So this here is a piece of walnut. Now you can see how much different this is because this is a cross section right across the trunk of the tree. You see what killed the tree, obviously. The core rotted out. Looks like it was like some sort of termite infestation Even I thought termites do dead wood. But anyway, I don't know what, I'm not an arborist. But something got into this tree, killed the tree, rotted the center out. And good for me because it gave me some beautiful wood to carve. It's very thick. Yeah, this is a really thick piece. And it's a slow growing tree because look at how many rings. This was a really old tree. Can you see how many rings are in there?
Yeah.
Now, this piece, this walnut is going to be really nice, really dark. Now, this is something I got to take into account carving this piece actually, because that's as dark as this is going to get here on the cherry. So it's not going to, it's going to be beautiful, but it's not going to be dark. This piece is going to be very dark. What that does is that makes some elements harder to read. So I can't do really tight, super detailed little things because you're not going to see them, you know? So this piece is going to have some bigger elements, deeper. There's going to be deeper, and it allows me to be deeper because it's thicker. So it's going to have deeper elements. It's going to have more openings through this. But this is a very difficult piece to work with. Why is that, Amanda?
Because it's end grain.
End grain, and what's that mean?
That you're going against the grain always.
Going into it. I'm going into it.
Yeah.
So end grain is so difficult to work with.
I learned that from all your other videos.
Oh, that's why, you know, if anybody would know, you would know at this point. End grain is so sturdy, so strong. I believe they're still there. There were a lot of streets in Philadelphia that were made with end grain instead of cobblestone, end grain squares. So they were actually, because it's so durable, it would hold up over. So there's streets that are a couple hundred years old in the city that are still wood streets that have lasted. So I'll show you how hard the end grain is. I will take a small, super sharp chisel and this isn't all. I only brought the baby stack out today. It is my arsenal of chisels.
It says arsenal.
Of chisels. Are you advertising for them now? Maybe they can be a product sponsor.
Yeah, there you go.
When I need a tool pouch, I reach for my arsenal. All right. Cha-ching! I just made $50. All right. Actually, well, just a little V. So here we go. I've got my. Now this will go easy because it's just coming across. This is my little V. I'm gonna need corporate sponsors for my videos, I think. I don't always drink coffee while I work, but when I do. Okay, so this is really sharp. I'm not going deep. This is pretty easy. So, if you've seen my videos before, you do realize that when I cross-hatch with marker, what's that mean, Mandy?
That is going to go away. That's going to be a space.
Yeah, that will be a negative space. The cross-hatch means it's disappearing. So when I do this with the little chisel, all I'm doing is I'm drawing in a chisel because, you know, pencil or marker disappears. This is a way that I can just track as I'm going. Okay, so you see that? It's just, you can see instantly. If I came here, I can go. You can see here. Let me go here. If you can see, I'll have to show you. You can see how much wood I can take so quick when I'm going on this piece, where I can move a lot fast. When you come here, when wood comes off like that in pellets, it gives you an idea
You know, in wood vocabulary, do you know what edge grain or face grain?
Face grain. I don't know that. Ooh, who asked?
Sharon.
Sharon, you're not supposed to ask me questions I don't know in my 5 o'clock club. Face grain, edge grain. Well, the only edge I know is like live edge, which is what all these are. When you get the exposed natural edge. Face grain, I'm not sure what that means, or what that is. I'm sure somebody can tell me. But you can see how kind of slow this process of getting down in here is. And actually, I can now relate something to the stone, which is interesting.
Sharon said she wouldn't know if you made up the definition.
Well, there is elbow grain. Ask her if she knows elbow grain. Elbow grain, see, I wasn't quick enough on the... So, one thing with the wood that's kind of interesting is the wood is very forgiving. So, I can kind of hammer straight down like this. And I'm not going to do any damage to the wood beyond, see, look at that. You see how,
Oh my goodness.
how tight that grain is on this. Just doing that, got that stuck. But I'm not going to do any damage on it. Once I get down past where I just kind of drove that chisel in, you wouldn't notice that I ever did that.
Face grain is when a board has one side that's wider than the other.
Wider than the other? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. I do have that in the shed, face grain. Yeah, I knew that. Face grain. Sharon, ask me again what face grain is. Okay, so, there we go. I'm not going to do any damage, even though I pounded real hard on that. Now, as on the other side, if I come into the marble and I took this chisel and I hammered directly in like that, straight in, okay? What happens is you'll get this white dot. Now, we had technical difficulties, but we're back. So, what I was saying was, if I hit straight in on this, you'd get a white dot. And even if I carved and made things super smooth, that white dot would remain. The reason why is the stone being made of crystals, I have then gone and I've compressed them in on themselves by coming in like that and compacting those crystals and almost bruising the stone. So even though the stone is smooth, I've put a bruise into it. And you have to go very deep past it to get that bruise out. So that is something you always have to be cognizant about when you are carving stone and you want to work on angles. You never want to go straight in on stone. And that's how sometimes you can tell how good a carver somebody is. If they have lots of white dots, they were a little too aggressive with their carving. So.
All right, so that those grains that she was talking about, the face grain and the entry, those woods are really good for like cutting boards, kind of a thing.
Do I look like a cutting board kind of guy?
That's a whole different craft, and we don't have craft at our shop.
Is that the craft show? Is Sharon asking me questions about the craft show? Come on, Sharon. What time is it?
It's 7:44.
Oh, it's gone. We're done already. Well, I hope you guys had fun. I had fun. I hope you learned a little something. This will not be a cutting board. This will actually look a lot like the painting I just sold, the blue one, the big blue one that I just sold about a month ago or so, Maelstrom. It's going to be very similar. I wanted to do a sculpture that had that same kind of feel. So This one's going to take a really long time. You know what that means? Cha-ching!
Hopefully it'll be ready for September.
I hope it's ready for September. But that'll go. I have some commission stuff going that I will do some videos on, and I got to get this stone going because I don't have any stones right now in my. I don't have any stone to show. So, thanks everybody. I do want to mention. I'd be remiss if you are a student and you even graduated in 2020. We are allowing students, because of the pandemic, who graduated last year to still be in the student show for September. So, applications are out. They're live on Zap. Apply to the show. It's a great opportunity as a student to get your foot in the door to some of these see what the world of selling art on your own is, because I'll tell you, galleries are great, but they take a huge percentage. So if you can establish a life where you're selling work on your own, that's a beautiful thing, and our show's a great start. So we implore you, apply to the show. It's a great chance to show to a great crowd. But thanks everybody. Thanks to Amanda. Love you, babe. And thanks for watching, everybody. We have one more next week. Carrie will be hosting an interview with Cerulean Gallery, and then we're off for July. Whew. But we'll be back strong in August with more 5 o'clock clubs. So thank you. I'll see you next time. And any questions, feel free to hit me up. You ever want anything, feel free to hit me up. And if I don't have it, just talk to Amanda and she'll make sure I do it. Bye, everybody. Thank you.